Welcome. I'm Carl Frederick, and I will be interviewing individuals for Kenosha Voices, an oral history project of the Kenosha County Historical Society in conjunction with Kenosha Community Media. I have worked in newspapers for more than 40 years as an editor and a reporter. 38 and a half of those years were at the Kenosha News. I am also a member of the Kenosha County Historical Society Board. We hope you enjoy these programs. I'm speaking with Mike Herman today, the founder of Kenosha County's Dairy Breakfast. Thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome, sir.
When did you come to Kenosha?
I came to Kenosha on the first day of January 1980.
Okay.
And been here ever since.
Okay. And why did you come to Kenosha?
Because I got hired to do a job here. I came back from the mission field, which I was for the previous 12 years, and looking for a job. I decided that since they could hire me in Madison, that made me eligible for all 72 counties in Wisconsin. So I thought that was smart just to locate there.
Okay. So where were you a missionary, and what was your job there?
My job was as an agricultural resource person, and I was with the New Guinea Lutheran Mission, which the counterpart here is Missouri Synod Lutheran. And at the time they had about 100 staff members in Papua New Guinea. And I was hired as the only agriculturally trained person there.
Okay. And why did you leave the mission work to decide to come to Wisconsin?
It was time.
Okay.
Sometimes when you take those overseas assignments, you kind of leave when you think it's time.
Okay. And when you came back to Wisconsin, you first went to, you said University of Wisconsin-Madison?
Yes. Well, I negotiated a piece of reintroduction to society at that point, which, they had even taken away my driver's license. I had a fight to kind of get it back, to find that I didn't have any mistakes on the driving record. So there's lots of little things that turned out to be quite a job. But the mission board decided that for the 12 years I was there, I never took all of my leave. So I had accumulated seven months of salary and benefits. And so I decided to use that to go back and audit some of those courses that I wish I'd taken over the years, and that put me back in Madison, and that's basically where I did during those times.
Okay. So then you were ready to look for a job using the University of Wisconsin-Madison as a springboard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Springboard would be a very good term.
Okay. And you had more than one opportunity, or?
Oh, I had many opportunities. Just within the Extension Service, University of Wisconsin Extension Service, there are 72 counties that I could have fit into, but Kenosha was the second one I interviewed for.
And what did you like about the Kenosha job?
I like the people. They seem down to earth, and kind of like those were. My original county was Shawano County, so they seem very down to earth and very nice. So this is where I came.
So you started your job in 1981?
1981.
You were hired as what?
As the county agricultural agent.
Okay.
At the time we had Phyllis Northway was the home economics agent. Rod Buckley was the 4-H agent at the time, and we had a couple of secretaries. So extension office was a staff of about 5 people.
Okay. And your job as agriculture agent was to do what?
Promote agriculture in whatever way that I thought was appropriate. And let me throw in a little bit of history here. Back in 1980, cows were fed kind of in the old way. They would stay in the barn during the wintertime and be fed stored hay and silage and so forth. In the spring, when the sun said it's appropriate for this nice alfalfa to be grazed, that's when the farmers would normally turn out the crops, turn out the cows. And of course the cows loved it. And immediately there was a surplus of milk during that time of the year, or specifically that month. So the U.S. Department of Agriculture named June as Dairy Month back in 1937. And that kind of meant that one of my jobs just went along with the territory was to promote milk and milk production at that time.
And how did you do that?
Well, I called a few of my cohorts around the state, some of my county agents in other counties, so I could virtually
Connect with anybody.
Pardon?
You could virtually connect with anybody.
Yes, and they were very helpful. And the idea of breakfast on the farm sounded to be a good idea. And from that series of interviews, I called a meeting of all the dairy leaders in the time, and some of the grandfathers of the current operators of the farm, and they thought it was a pretty good idea.
Okay, so tell me what had to happen to make the dairy breakfast work.
Well, we had to first select a farm, get everybody invited to that, and well, there's quite a story here, because the first breakfast we talked about, of course, how many people would come was one of the main questions, and we thought 500 would have been a pretty good. Well, it turned out that 1,400 showed up at the first breakfast.
So you were short of food?
We were very short of food. As a matter of fact, that was the main job of the committee, was to chase around Kenosha County on Saturday morning trying to find enough food just to feed the people. We had supportive things like, there was a petting zoo that was pretty, there was a miniature tractor pull. We had a buggy, horse and buggy, that people could ride on to view the farm, and various other. One of my favorite ones was when you take a truckload of shavings, and you scatter a bunch of coins in those, and letting the kids dig for it and see how they show. They come up with shavings all over the place, but a few dollars in hand, and
Sure.
and things like that, and educational events. The pork producers were very popular back in those days, and so they would come in and kind of use our event to promote pork and so forth, and everything educational, of course, which was what Extension was all about.
So what was on the plate of the dairy breakfast?
Say again?
What was on the plate?
Oh, Started with a big fry pan. The Department of Agriculture for Wisconsin at that time had a promotion fry pan. It was a 6-foot diameter fry pan with about a 3-foot handle, and it was handled by, you take a wire frame with about 5 burners around the inside, and it's Teflon coated. And we took 5 people with dustpans. That's what we used for spatulas, so they were about almost a foot wide. And that was kind of the main event. Just that was an event by itself.
So eggs was on the plate. Eggs were on the plate.
Eggs were on the plate.
And what else?
We had a sweet roll from the bakery here, and let me think now. Oh, like yogurt and milk, of course. We even had a discussion of whether we should even allow coffee to be sold, but it's pretty much snuck in that people do want their a cup of coffee on Saturday morning. And
so you were end up being short of sweet rolls, and you were short of eggs.
Well,
how did you come across getting the eggs?
I don't remember all the details. All I remember is that was the main role of all the committee members that had on deck at that time to chase all over the county.
How many eggs did you have to crack?
Well, as it turned out, about 2 eggs per, so that was about 2,800 eggs. And the first year we made the mistake of buying them in the shell, and discovered later on that eggs are made liquid, like they break them out first, and you put them in 5-gallon pails. So the second year we had 5-gallon pails. That's about 300 eggs. That's we learned quite a bit from those first ones. I probably should tell you about the rain event, because we just naturally assumed that the farmer would clear off a hayfield previous to the breakfast, and so you would have the alfalfa stubble out there. Mm-hmm. So the first time you have a couple of thousand cars drive onto a wet hayfield and have to get pulled off by a tractor because it's that muddy. That's when we decided to look for other ways to handle the crowd, and we came up with the buses and going to a nearby municipal lot at the time. Turned out to be a pretty good part of the breakfast.
So now everybody parks off-site and they're bussed into the dairy
Yeah.
breakfast?
Yeah, they go to that, wherever that parking lot is, which should be within a couple miles of the farm, and then the bus loads up and shuttles them in.
Where was the first dairy breakfast held?
Very first breakfast was at Eugene Badke's, and his son Jim was very active in the farm at that time. As a matter of fact, we did the first 2 years there because we added the Allison Dairyland as part of our second breakfast. We already got confident enough that we had things under management.
Okay, and how early did the breakfast start?
That has gone from 4:30 to about 6 o'clock. The youngsters don't like to get up quite as early, so this generation starts it at about 6.
Okay, and then how long does it last?
4 hours.
4 hours or so?
Or until everybody gets done with everything that they came to see.
Okay. And you mentioned that 1,400 people came to the first
To
dairy
the very
breakfast.
first one. We expected 500 and we got 1,400.
Okay. So how many years were you in charge of the dairy breakfast?
I was a county egg agent here for 6 years, and during that time it went up to a high of 4,000. Was our best crowd ever.
Okay, and what did they use for tables and chairs for all these people?
Well, we originally started with using hay bales, and then we would go to a nearby lumber retailer and borrow 2x10 planks, about 10 foot long, and we would lay the bales down, and one bale high was the chair and 2 bales high was the table. And then we would put the planks on and put a paper tablecloth over the top, and that became and we did that for a few years, but now I've noticed they've gone to commercial tables and chairs.
Okay, and have you gone to every dairy breakfast so far?
I have. I made it a point to go to every dairy breakfast because everyone is unique and different. And and for a while, well, last year,
2024? The one prior to this in
Yes.
2024?
2024, yes. We had that at a beef farm. And I had questions in my mind of how that would work, but they brought in a single dairy cow and went through the motions, etc. And I anticipate that might happen again because we're running out of dairy farms where the number of dairy farms has continued to go down. And I think they're going to be overrun at some point. And then we could have a dairy breakfast at like a county fairgrounds or something like that. That would be one option.
Sure. At that first dairy breakfast, when you were surprised by the number of people, did you go around asking people what brought them there? Or?
Yeah. One major, and I'd like to bring this out because it's typical of farmers. When you get a bunch of farmers together, they're assuming that they're doing something, carrying something, doing some work. Well, it didn't work that way. We needed people to sort of look over the crowd and decide what should be done on their behalf. So the farmers that I taught how to do that, I went around the first year as call it the information manager, and with a clipboard and ask them appropriate questions. One of the most appropriate was, how far did you come to this breakfast, and how far would you be able to drive additionally? Well, the thing we learned is, 100 miles is no big deal. We thought that would be a problem early on, but we didn't after the first year. And right now I'm happy to say that we regularly get people from other countries that have come and show up at our dairy breakfast. It used to be very popular that our politicians like to come to the dairy breakfast, because any place there's a crowd of people, that's where they like to come, and sometimes they would come uninvited. So we had a little problem with that for a while.
Well, I guess they are members of the public, so they could come. So, at the end of 6 years, you retired effectively from agriculture agents?
No, I went into what we'll call my fourth career.
Okay.
And that was real estate. So I was a realtor for 35 years after I quit extension, I should say.
Okay. So, that host farm What is all involved for them to prepare for the breakfast?
It's a tremendous obligation for the family. So the ones that are most successful, of course, have extended family in the area that can come and help for the day, because it takes a lot of volunteers to run all the food lines and all the exhibits and so forth to monitor. I should throw in one thing that we thought we needed at the beginning, and that is protection. We had no idea, getting together a couple thousand people at one place, whether that would introduce, you know, the elements that don't behave themselves. But I'm proud to say that the dairy breakfast crowd has been well
behaved.
Well behaved. We even had the sheriff's deputies on horseback patrol the grounds on that first breakfast. Found out we didn't need them. They were an interesting sidebar, but we didn't need protection.
So you mentioned some of the changes with the dairy breakfast from the beginning to now. How do you see the dairy breakfast evolving to change?
The idea from the beginning was that since we were a urban county, we had Kenosha in here. That's a pretty big city, as you know. And so we never thought of ourselves as having a breakfast for the farmers. We were putting on a breakfast for our city brothers, you know, have them bring the kids out or the grandkids and kind of get a little farm experience. And that's all the way from watching the milking going on and how the cows are handled, how the cows are fed, and everything associated with that. So that was our objective then, and still is our objective today.
Do you think that dairy breakfast will continue?
I do, only because it's a very, well, looking at it from 44 years later, it's a good event. It's just one day of the year. Hopefully it's good weather, but we've been pretty lucky over the years, and I think that it's kind of expanded. I first thought it would be an event for the county, but it's gone far beyond the county now. So I sure hope it does. And
are the crowds still coming?
Yeah. We had a maximum of 4,000 one year, and then it settled down to about 3,500, 3,400, and that seems to have kind of settled out as the normal expectation.
Well, thank you for joining me today.
Well, my pleasure.